Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Billy Joe, and today I'm back with another video for you guys. Now today, as you can see by the title, we're talking about HomeFront 2. HomeFront 2 is probably one of the most interesting videos that I could possibly do a video on, for the simple fact that there is little to no information, and in most of it's speculation, which means that I can ramble on about a whole range of different things, which may or may not be true. Although there are a range of things which have been confirmed, etc., leaks, blah blah blah, a whole range of stuff really that I can't be asked to go into in that much detail, but I will overview everything that we have so far on the game, but which is not a lot. But apart from the fact that we know who is developing it, when they're developing it, what they're aiming for, we've had some interviews, etc. over the last year, and give you some background. Let's start with the background. Background's always good to go with. So, the original HomeFront, which you can see on screen now, which I picked up for £1.50 by the way on g2a.com, you can go and check it out and buy it for £1.50, it's ridiculously cheap. Anyway, pick that up for £1.50, hopped on it, spiked my interest of whether or not HomeFront 2 is actually going to come out this year, because on the Crytek actual Wikipedia it says the HomeFront 2 should be being announced or released in 2014. Now, given that no trailer or anything's been released, I would say that if it is going to make an appearance this year, it will be at one of the major games conferences such as Eurogamer or something along the lines of that. But yeah, not much has been said, not much interviews at all, so it'd be surprising if it does. But hello, we will see, won't we, I suppose, as it gets closer to the times and all the big conferences start happening later on this year. Will it be announced with something like Call of Duty later on this year in that kind of time zone? I really don't know. Or will it probably be 2015? So some background information for you guys. THQ originally developed the original HomeFront, but just after releasing the original HomeFront, they sadly went bankrupt. In 2011 is when they released it, and just a year later, in 2012, THQ did declare bankruptcy and ended up having to sell off all of its assets. So, what did the franchise HomeFront do, and where did it go? Well, HomeFront was ceased development, obviously by THQ, and was sold to Crytek in UK, or Crytek in general, for $544,000 US. Not really a lot for a games thing, but you know, they were just trying to get rid of some of their assets, and they sold the HomeFront series, which sold around 2.6 million copies originally, and they sold it to Crytek. Crytek, good developer, developed a lot of games, but the subsidiary studio, specifically that's developing this one, is Crytek UK. So Crytek UK has been in part of, or developed itself on its own, Crisis Warhead, Crisis 2, Crisis 3. It's had a part in Far Cry, Warface, Rise, Son of Rome, which is the Xbox One exclusive, that was pretty goddamn awful but looks beautiful. And they're in development of HomeFront 2. That is no secret. They are developing it, but the details of it are very scarce. As a free radical design, they did Time Splitters, Time Splitters 2, Second Sight, Time Splitters Future Perfect and Haze, and Knights of Honor and World Shift. All under different names for a lot of things, to be honest with you. But yeah, the engine which they're set to use is CryEngine 3, I would imagine, or it will be CryEngine 4, whether or not Crytek decide to bring out a new version of their engine this year to match Crisis 4, if they bring out Crisis 4 next year or this year. But it depends what they decide to do, I suppose. But all we know is they're going to be using CryEngine, which would make perfect sense. But the release date of HomeFront 2 by Crytek UK does say to be announced 2014. So that's probably when they're trying to bring it in for. So I'm guessing right now we can say that it's going to be on next-gen consoles generally, and we're going to say that it's probably going to be on PC. Well, okay, it's going to be on PC. That's a bit of a stupid thing to say. But anyway, so it's to be announced this year. If that follows through, Crytek can be a bit hit and miss on their announced dates, etc. But hey ho, we should get an announcement sometime this year of HomeFront. So what do we want from HomeFront? Well, HomeFront 2, should I say? Well, let's start with what HomeFront wasn't originally when it came out. And HomeFront originally was not a lot of things. THQ did put their heart and soul into developing the game, but there was a certain amount of things, such as fundamental game design and mechanics, really, that weren't there. The kind of thing to do with the vision and the whole idea of the game was absolutely fantastic in every way. The whole kind of storyline and how it was set was absolutely awesome. You know, it was a really good idea really to base the game on, and they could have took it in a lot of different directions. However, the execution of that idea and the kind of vision was quite poor by THQ. The single player specifically I'm talking about here, I still enjoy now after paying £1.50. Will have probably racked up about 4 hours of gameplay on Homefront in a day. So I still enjoy the multiplayer aspect of the game, and you know, it's good to see that some servers are still up and going. Official support has been taken down, but that's not the, you know, there's still servers up there to hop onto every now and then, so it's always something which I suppose you could do. And it's a bit of fun, a nice bit of shooter. But that, yeah, as I said, there was mechanics in the game which were less than perfect, and that mainly being the single player campaign was very go to cover, shoot your enemies, move on to the next objective, blah blah blah, follow scripted events and scenes that would, you know, and the actual gameplay itself was boring. Although the whole idea and the whole situation you were thrown into was pretty goddamn epic, the whole type of, the gameplay that you actually played to do with that situation sucked dick, in my opinion. But, so, multiplayer was probably, well, why am I saying probably? It was a lot better, in my opinion. I enjoyed the original Homefront's multiplayer, and I think it's a big part of the game that made quite a big impact for me, actually, on how I played shooters. Homefront was one of those original games that really innovated, in my opinion, when it came to FPS. And what I mean by that is the way the system and mechanics which they implemented in the multiplayer were very good, such as racking up battle points, being awarded for priority targets, etc., and unlocking vehicles to help your team out. Yes, there were some imbalancing issues and, you know, things like that, and design flaws in maps and things which could have been ironed out, but to be honest with you, there's not a single FPS which I can name in this day and age that comes out, a modern FPS shooter that comes out in this day and age that doesn't have the same issues, to be honest with you. There's so much going on in an FPS shooter now, and so many different things have to be taken into account. There's always going to be map design and errors, etc. And for a game released in 2011, you know, it had its problems on multiplayer as well. But generally, the game looked pretty well. It was using Unreal Engine 3, so it looked pretty good. But there were some key mechanics there and general things to do with single player and some ironing out of the multiplayer which could have been done. But THQ, you can see generally that they did try to make this game as big a hitting as possible. And only selling 2.6 million copies, I thought the game would have done a little bit better in my opinion. But it's amazing what you find out actually when you're looking on Wikipedia, I'll tell you that much now. But anyway, it's being developed by Crytek UK. So what can we expect from Crytek? Well, if they're developing it on the Crytek engine, we can expect a very, very sexual looking game. A very sexual looking game. Homefront 2 is probably going to be taken to the next level when it comes to looks and general appearances. But that's not all we really look for in a game, is it? Let's be quite honest here. So, yeah, it's going to be one of those things, guys, where whether or not the gameplay aspect is going to be fantastic is something to be seen, but whether or not the looks are going to be good, I expect it to look pretty goddamn sexy, just for the simple fact that the engine they're basing the game on, so we can pretty much predetermine the kind of looks we're going to expect, which is going to be looking pretty goddamn sexy. But the main thing really that we're going to have to look out for is how the gameplay and how the game actually runs, and the whole idea and concept and how they've moved on from that. So, Button Brown, and this is the guy who works with Crytek, or the managing CEO of Crytek or some shit, I don't really pay attention to this guy, but he said the team at Crytek UK is putting their heart and soul into the game, noting that the most recent milestone check was excellent. And now this is off GameSpot, and this was an article that was done nearly a year ago now, so it's quite out of date information, but it's good to see that they are still developing it. And from something that happened late on in 2013, I think it was October or November, when a press conference for a CEO still said that Crytek UK was doing absolutely fantastic progress on Homefront 2. So we still know it's in development and it's making good progress up until around 4 months ago. Unless they've scrapped it in that time period, which I don't think they have, then we know the game is on for a good run. Well, should be anyway. It's not very often on a conference generally that a game developer CEO will be so open about a game that's in development. Usually they're quite tight and closed down about a game, but this one they seem to be saying, yeah, it's doing well, we're doing it, you know, blah blah blah. We're not shying away from the fact that we're doing it. We are generally going in full whammy on this thing, which is good. It gives us confidence as players that they're really actually confident about what they're doing as a developing studio for the game. But generally, what do we want from the game? Well, for me personally, it's going to have to be something that really throws you in and really immerses you in this kind of experience to do with fighting in your own backyard. That was something that THQ, the original company that made Homefront, the original in 2011, really wanted to hammer home to the players, was the fact that you would have to be fighting in an environment that wasn't Afghanistan, wasn't, you know, a foreign country, Russia, whatever. In every game you fight Russia. And it was something where you were the defender on your home turf. And for America, this was one of the first games that actually did that, and did it half decently well and to the mainstream audience, and I respected that. Yeah, it might not have worked perfectly, but that is something which I expect from HomeFront 2. They have to keep me entertained and keep me in that kind of line. What I do not want from Crytek is to throw me into a foreign country and say, you're on a special mission to save the US, you must do something like travel all the way to fucking Korea itself and destroy this thing. It's like, I don't want to do that. I want to be fighting as a resistance, and I want to be on the home soil. I want it to be realistic, down to earth, and I want it to be gritty. And when I say gritty, I want it to be full of goddamn heartache. Now, I'm a player that doesn't want to be chucked into a game and be the hero 24/7. I want to be a player that's chucked into the game and plays the role of a character which is going to give me some serious stuff to think about in my life. And my dog is barking downstairs. But that's seriously what I want to be as the gamer. I want to be a gamer that's thrown in, or a character, sorry, that's thrown into this situation which really makes me think about every action. And that's just the single player generally which I'm talking about. It has to throw me into the action and really make it immersive, because for me to enjoy what the game is actually about and what it's actually trying to get across to me as a player, it's going to have to take a different spin on the generic Call of Duty fighting in a different country. A first-person shooter is not always about gameplay, it's all about actually the theory, and actually the situation it places you in can have a big impact on the gameplay itself. So that's something I'm really looking for in HomeFront 2, generally, is to fight on home soil, fight in a different environment, and that really adds something to the game in my opinion. THQ tried to do it, they just failed to do it precisely or significantly well, which is a bit of a downside, but hey ho, that's something which they will have, hopefully will be amended in HomeFront 2. So when it comes on to the multiplayer, which is probably something you've been watching throughout the entirety of this video, is me playing on a multiplayer and probably getting killed horrendously bad throughout the entire thing. Multiplayer for me, the systems and mechanics that were placed in the multiplayer I thought were really cool and good. And what I mean by that is, generally, I think the way you earned battle points and could bring in different vehicles and things, and spawn in different vehicles, on death, to bring back in to help your team out, or blah blah blah, were really quite cool. And I think the way you could spend the battle points as well for enhancing abilities as you were alive and moving around, such as body armor, like flat jacket, spawning a launcher, maybe purchase a small drone to take into a building if you knew there was an enemy in there but you weren't in a position to go and try and take him out. All little things like that really adapted the gameplay as you played, and I thought that was a really cool touch from THQ. So it was a good system mechanic in my opinion there. There was a few things that probably could have been edited, and it could have been broader as a whole, a bit more range of vehicles and blah blah blah, that brought into the game would have been cool as well. But generally speaking, the base mechanic was there, and I really liked that in the multiplayer in the game. But yeah, there was a few things, in fact significant amount of things really, that could have been adapted and changed really in the multiplayer, which would have made it a lot better. Generally multiplayer as well, if we're talking about server sizes, this is a topic of conversation which often people disagree on. Now, multiplayer server sizes in a game will, in my opinion, vary on the game itself. It has to suit the maps, suit the game design, and suit kind of everything about it. There is no point having a game such as Titanfall, the new FPS shooter that's coming out, having 32 players on each team, because playing the beta myself, I saw that that was not what the maps had been designed for, and it wouldn't have flowed properly. And that's something which I suppose is going to have to wait and see what the HomeFront 2 kind of whole adaptation is, because that in theory will kind of depend on what kind of the player or team sizes are on the maps, etc. And I think a lot of different things go into making the server sizes really in a game. But me personally, I'd like to see quite large scale battles on large maps, strewn over quite a wide range that can really change and adapt as you're fighting on them, like destructible environments. That would be pretty cool as well. So I'd probably say 16 or 32 per team would probably be what I say. I mean, the original had 32 per team, so I'm probably saying 64 would be pretty cool. But it depends how big the map is. What would be really cool is to play on a map where you are playing in a suburban kind of place, fighting, and as you get pushed back or you push the enemy back, you end up fighting in a really urban, sprawling city environment. So it's like kind of an adaptive map, so it kind of adapts as you play through it. A bit like the original game actually did, where if you played ground control, you'd fight over a certain 3 objectives, and as a certain team wins that, it will push you back or push them back, and then there'll be another 3 objectives, etc. That for me was a really cool touch, and I really enjoyed that touch actually in the ground control game mode. So that would be nice to see, but on a much bigger scale with a lot more adaptation in the map. So what do I mean by adaptations? I mean, for instance, buildings being destroyed or something, you know, or something happening that makes the map change. A bit like Levolution on Battlefield, but a bit more effort put into it, because, let's be honest, Levolution on Battlefield isn't fantastic. It was kind of just a gimmick on certain maps to help it look attractive, really, drawing traders, etc. But, alas, if they can do that, but in a much more adaptive and suitable way for the game, then that's something which I'd be extremely interested in. But that's just a few ideas for multiplayer, and generally a revamp of single player is needed. So if they can do that, and hopefully it might be released in 2014 or 2015, but hopefully we'll be seeing some information about it later on this year. That's pretty much a given. If they are seriously considering releasing it this year or next year, then we'll probably see something about it this year, whether it be late this year or not. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video nonetheless, and some of the information that we've heard about the game generally, and some of the interviews, along with what I personally want from the game, and generally what the community wants from the game as well. If there's anything you'd like from HomeFront 2 that I haven't discussed down in the comments, or if you haven't actually looked at the original HomeFront and don't know much about it, then click on the link in the description below, and you can go and watch some trailers, etc., or just hop onto another YouTube video and watch some original gameplay. But hopefully the gameplay that you've seen in the background kind of sums up a lot of the different features. I've tried to have drones and all sorts in it just to try and show you guys the range of features which are in the game. But alas, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a bit.